Welcome, everyone. My name is Pericles Lewis, and I'm the Vice President for Global Strategy here at Yale. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the second of our three webinars, which is part of the Yale and Brazil Supporting Future Science Research series. Yale has a deep and rich relationship with Brazil, and in fact, some of our first international students here at Yale came from Brazil. João Francisco Lima entered the Yale School of Medicine in 1833, and since then, Yale has provided an exceptional training ground for Brazilian leaders and scholars. And this history between Yale and Brazil has resulted in a vibrant and growing alumni community. We have a variety of programs and partnerships in Brazil, including through the Council on Latin American and Iberian Studies, the Yale Law School, the School of Management, the School of Public Health, and the School of Medicine. When President Peter Salovey visited Brazil a few years ago, he met with our alumni and institutional partners, and I know it was inspiring for him to see Yale's strong partnerships and collaborations among faculty, students, and scientists in action. I personally visited Brazil about 15 years ago, but I look forward to doing so again when public health permits. Today's webinar will feature an example of our partnerships related to the University of Sao Paulo Yale Partnership for Global Health, developed by Professor Michael Capello in collaboration with two Yale alumni at the University of Sao Paulo's Medical School in Ribeirão Preto, Drs. Sylvia Fonse and Benedito Fonse, whom you'll be hearing from today. And we've been very pleased with our continued strong relationship with the University of Sao Paulo and are grateful for being included as a strategic partner as part of its print program to jointly fund Yale and USP faculty, researchers, and graduate students. If you are a Yale or University of Sao Paulo faculty member or a researcher or graduate student interested in a joint research project, please reach out to our Office of International Affairs. I'd now like to briefly introduce Michael Capello, who will moderate today's session, and he will introduce the panelists. Professor Capello is Professor of Pediatrics, Microbial Pathogenesis, and Public Health at the Yale School of Medicine. And in addition to his medical school appointments, Dr. Capello also chairs the Council on African Studies at the Macmillan Center for International and Area Studies at Yale, and he directs the Yale Africa Initiative. He's been involved with a lot of international activities in Brazil and Africa and also in China. Dr. Capello oversees a laboratory and field-based research program focused on the global health impact of infectious diseases and is co-founder of Yale Partnerships for Global Health, an initiative that advances scientific knowledge, promotes international understanding, and builds human capacity through collaborative research and training. The program supports medical trainees and research collaborators from universities throughout the world, including, of course, from Brazil. In addition to his research, Dr. Capello provides clinical care as an infectious diseases specialist at Yale New Haven Children's Hospital, and he is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and serves on the Academic Advisory Council of Schwarzman Scholars Program in Tsinghua University, Beijing. He's a 2007 recipient of the Bailey K. Ashford Medal, which is awarded by the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene for distinguished work in tropical medicine. He's a graduate of Brown University with a degree in biomedical ethics, and he received his MD from Georgetown University. And he's been a leader in Yale's international activities for a long time. So thank you very much, Dr. Capello, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vice President Lewis, and a special thanks to all the attendees and panel participants for today's webinar. So the purpose of this event is to highlight Yale's engagement in Brazil by sharing with you some examples, in particular, an example of a long-standing collaboration between Yale Medical School and two of its most accomplished alumni, Dr. Sylvia and Benedito Fonseca. In addition, we're really pleased to be joined by three of the trainees who spent time at Yale under a program called the USP, or University of Sao Paulo Yale Partnership for Global Health. So I'll say a few words about this program, and then we'll begin our conversation with our panelists. So the USP Yale Partnership was founded in 2009, and we sponsor programs that are aimed at building research capacity and promoting collaborations between Yale University and the Ribeirão Preto Medical School at the University of Sao Paulo. The mission of the program is to address some of the public health challenges in Brazil by supporting collaborations that build sustainable research capacity, that strengthen a global health network, and also trains future scientific leaders. The model really encourages collaboration by sponsoring bidirectional faculty and student exchanges. We mentor early career scientists, really with the hope of helping them launch their career in research or in public health or in medicine. So since 2009, and thanks to the generous support of the Georgia Paulo Lemon Foundation, we've had 36 research trainees from the University of Sao Paulo who participated in a Summer Research Institute, which is an initiative hosted here by Yale's Department of Pediatrics. And so each year, 3 to 5 trainees from USP come to Connecticut, where they live on campus, and they're assigned to a senior Yale faculty mentor for an 8-week internship. Lab projects get individually designed to try to meet the interests of the student and also give them some experience in state-of-the-art methods and techniques. So in addition to hands-on training, USP scholars attend weekly seminars presented by Yale faculty who provide career advice and some perspective on a career in research. They also enroll in coursework through Yale's investigative medicine program, which provides formal training in biostatistics and clinical research methods. And equally important, the USP students get to know other students from Yale and also from around the world through living on campus in the residential halls and sharing a living experience and networking events while they're on campus. So it's really quite an intensive experience for these trainees, and one that has provided the opportunity to sustain a partnership with the University of Sao Paulo. So as you'll hear today, the trainees from Brazil who participated have really gone on to do some wonderful things in their education and career. Many of them complete their PhDs, go on to prestigious postdoctoral fellowships, both within Brazil and also abroad. And today you'll hear from 3 of our alumni of that program. First, however, I'd like to introduce you to 2 Yale alumni who've really played important roles in sustaining our engagement in Brazil, and especially with the University of Sao Paulo. So I'm going to start by introducing Dr. Sylvia Fonse. She's the Director of Infectious Diseases for Hapvida Health Systems in Ribeirão Preto, where she's responsible, in fact, for managing a regional network of hospitals. Prior to her current role, Sylvia spent more than 25 years directing the infection control program at São Francisco Hospital in Ribeirão Preto. She's played a critical role in developing research and treatment strategies for a number of emerging infectious diseases, most notably dengue virus and also COVID-19, with a focus on developing programs and approaches that can be applied in resource-limited settings. She's a graduate of the Yale School of Public Health and the Pediatric Infectious Disease Fellowship Program, where her research interests in hospital epidemiology were born. Sylvia has also served as a consultant to the Pan American Health Organization of the WHO and a mentor to numerous Yale Medical School, public health, and nursing students. Also with us today is Dr. Benedito Fonseca. He's an associate professor at the Ribeirão Preto School of Medicine at the University of Sao Paulo. Benedito received both his MPH and his PhD at Yale, the PhD in molecular virology. And since returning to Brazil, Benedito has developed a research program focused on molecular epidemiology of infectious diseases. He used a number of innovative techniques to study viral infections, including dengue, HIV, and Zika, just to name a few. And in addition to his research, Benedito is an experienced educator and an expert clinician who serves on the front lines, managing a number of infectious diseases, including COVID-19, HIV, and dengue. And fortunately for us here at Yale, Benedito is a co-founder and a director of the USP-Yale Partnership for Public Health, for Global Health, which I mentioned earlier, and which you will certainly hear more about today. So I'd like to begin just by asking Sylvia and Benedito to reflect a bit on their experience at Yale and how that experience impacted their professional paths. Tell us a bit about what you remember and why the reasons are that you've kept a close relationship to the university. So why don't we begin with Sylvia?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I was, reflecting about when I arrived at Yale, I was just a pediatrician. I had no idea. I thought that public health was something to do to the public, but away from me. I was trained to do clinical practice and also, private practice perhaps. And then at Yale, I was exposed to so many things at EPH and then at the PDID. And then I completely changed in those 7 years we spent there. When I arrived back to Brazil, I didn't go back to São Paulo, where I am originally from. I went to Ribeirão Preto, and it's about being in the right place at the right time. Nobody knew hospital epidemiology. The infection control programs were mostly done by nurses, and there was no clinical eye towards that. So I'm glad to say that I started a program, and quickly I became a local reference, then a state reference, then a national reference to do hospital epidemiology. I kept my links with the United States. I went back, and I still go back to Yale before pandemic, almost yearly, where I presented my work. I also joined the Society of Healthcare Epidemiology of America. I was part of their scientific committee for 4 years, and then the board of directors, I was elected to be the international counselor. And towards these years, I would go back to Yale, show my not my research, but my clinical practice, my hospital epidemiology practice, and then everything that was going on. Michael likes to say that I left as a student, a tutor, and then we all became colleagues, and I'm very happy and proud to say that I'm Michael's Capello colleague, where we met. We were both fellows. Today, I am the director of 45 hospitals. Actually, it's a national organization from the north of the country to the south. And my Yale education was fundamental for me to be able to join forces with other physicians to create our protocol of treatment of COVID, early recognition, how we are going to prepare our hospitals, how we are going to measure. I learned at Yale how to measure and how to present my data. And I arrived as a pediatrician, and I think today I'm, a manager, I'm an infectious disease specialist. I also treat adults now. And I learned how to think critically. For me, it was very important to be to analyze data. I learned how to write papers. So I learned a lot. Enough.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's very, very kind of you to reflect so positively on your time at Yale. I've got a lot of questions I'd like to ask in follow-up, but first, I think, why don't we hear from Benedito? Benedito, you did your PhD also in the School of Public Health here at Yale, and I wonder if you could reflect a bit on your experience as first a master's and then a PhD student, and what lessons you took from that experience that helped you as you launched your own independent career upon returning to Brazil.
Okay, hi everybody. Well, I think I'm gonna start just as Silva did. When I went to Yale, I was just like an internist. I had finished my residence in infectious disease, and I was working in infectious disease, and it came with the opportunity to come to Yale. So I did my application, and I was fortunate to be accepted, first of all. And at Yale, I had like a wonderful time. For my master, I was really fortunate. I think I was very lucky all the way when I was at Yale, because I was able to meet with Robert Chope, Robert Ash, Francis Black, Peter Mays, among others, very knowledgeable people in the field of arthropod-borne viruses. So that was my well, my goal. That it was to learn the disease transmitted by mosquitoes and other arthropods. And I was very fortunate to meet those people. And I was an advisee from Robert Schopp from my master, and Peter Mason was my uh, advisor for my PhD. So I learned at Yale how to do research. I learned how to interpret data, and I really it was a game changer in my life. I was kind of very naive when I left Brazil, even though uh, you, you could be consider that I was graduate from the best uh, medical school in Brazil, uh, but I was kind of naive in terms of how to do research and how to work with research, and also what I learned a lot about lab work. And so I was introduced to lab work with by Robert Schopp. I think now I consider him as a father for me. He was incredible. He was very nice. He really took me by his hand and taught me how to do things. And then I went up to my PhD, where I learned molecular virology with Peter Mays. With Dr. Schopp, I was taught how to do like regular virology or basic virology. And, I think that really made a big change in my career. So I think to teach something, you have to learn firsthand how to do things. And that's what Robert Schopp taught me. And, and what I what happens is that when I came back, I came to the University of São Paulo, the School of Medicine at Ribeirão Preto, and I started uh, up here in terms of molecular diagnostic of uh, dengue, especially dengue, because I was also fortunate is going to be a word that I'm going to use a lot here because I did my training in arbovirus transmitted diseases, especially dengue. And when I came to Ribeirão Preto, dengue is one of the most prevalent disease. I think the most prevalent disease in our region and in Brazil. I would say it's a seasonal disease, but it's a very important disease in Brazil. And with all the knowledge that I acquired in US at Yale, I was able to really do all the research that I intended to do here in Ribeirão Preto. And with that, I I was able to receive some students from the School of Public Health. Um, I forgot the name of the fellowship now. There is this fellowship for
Wilbur Downs Fellowship.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Thank you. The Wilbur Downs Fellowship. I had some students coming here to do their research, and I act as a co-advisor for them, and that also was a very important experience for me. To teach these American students how to do things in a developing country or uh, in Brazil especially. And I also, as Silvia said, we go back very often to Yale. We have very, very wonderful friends there. such as Michael, and who actually many, besides all the uh, knowledge in terms of science that we got there, we also made a lot of good friends, friends that we really cherish for life, and we go there and we meet with them, and it's always a pleasure to go back to New Haven. I really love New Haven. Many people are gonna say that I'm crazy, but I love New Haven, you know, and I think that that was one experience that I think you can't really forget. And I was also very lucky, and I was very proud of that. I was the first person to give the Francis Black Memorial Lecture. So, and that really made me proud, to go back to Yale, to the school that I love, and give like a memorial lecture. That was really something for me. I guess that's it. It's really very, very important. It was very important the time that I spent here, and all the knowledge that I acquired there, and made me establish a research plan here that made me to be in several meetings from the Minister of Health, the State Secretary of Health, and the city health department. And so I'm an advisor for all these uh, departments, I would say. And well, I think that was, I don't think I would be uh, a researcher, and I would have like impact in the Brazilian health sector if I hadn't been to Yale. So, and I guess that's it. I think we could keep talking a lot about the time that we were at Yale, not only in terms of science, but also in terms of the meeting people, and getting to know other people, getting to know another way of life. And that's one thing that I would.
Right. What comes through in your comments, and I think also Sylvia's, is two things that I'd like to highlight before hearing from our students. One is the importance of and the influence of mentors. And one of the things I think that Yale takes great pride in is its mentoring, especially in the sciences, but across all disciplines and departments, and how important having great and attentive mentors is. And the second theme that I think has come through from the comments from both of you is that there's sort of the technical knowledge that you develop, but then there's also the relationships, the personal relationships and friendships that are developed. And certainly, the USP Yale Partnership for Global Health is a program that grew directly out of our relationship. In fact, the idea was born in an elevator, I think, in the hospital during one of your visits to campus. And we talked about finding a way to collaborate and a way to help some of the students from your institution experience some of the things that you and Sylvia experienced at Yale. So with that in mind, I think what we'd like to do now is hear from some of the alumni trainees from the USP Yale Partnership for Global Health, the Summer Research Institute, that we have been able to establish as a way of providing a very intense short-term, this is an 8-week program experience for students, graduate students and postdoctoral fellows from the University of São Paulo, give them an opportunity to experience time at Yale. So we have 3 of our trainees. I'll provide some introductions and then we'll hear from each of them. We have Luisa Antunes de Castro, Georgia. She's a postdoctoral fellow in internal medicine at the medical school in Ribeirão Preto. Luisa was in the very first cohort of students in the Summer Research Institute at Yale back in 2009, where she worked in the laboratory of Professor Jack Rose, working on viral vaccine technologies under a collaboration between Benedito and Professor Rose. And since then, Luisa went on to complete her PhD at the University of Sao Paulo and also received postdoctoral training at the University of Michigan here in the United States. We also have Fabio Dornis, who's an assistant professor of microbiology in the Department of Pharmacy at the Federal University of Valles de Jequitinhonha and Mercury in Brazil. Sorry, I apologize for my pronunciation, even though I was practicing that all morning. Fabio was a postdoctoral fellow and also received his PhD from the Federal University of Minas Gerais in Brazil. He participated in the Summer Research Institute here at Yale in 2011, where we were very fortunate to host him in my laboratory, studying some of the molecular genetics of parasitic hookworms. And this is work that led to a co-authored publication for Fabio as part of our group. And our third student that we'll hear from is Gabriel Montero da Silva. He's a second-year PhD student in the Molecular and Cellular Biology program at Brown University, where he's currently working on the interface between macromolecular dynamics and biological function. Gabriel obtained his bachelor's and MS degrees from the University of Sao Paulo. He's a Summer Research Institute trainee from 2017, where he worked in the laboratory of Professor Dan DeMeo here in the School of Medicine. So I'd like to start, if we could, begin with Luisa, but I'd like each of you to take turns kind of sharing your perspective as alumni of this program. We'd love to hear what you feel you got most out of the experience, and also, in addition to talking a bit about your research, talk a little bit about the highlights of your time here beyond your work in the laboratory. So let's begin with Luisa.
Hello, nice to talk to you. It was an amazing experience for me. I went in 2009, it was the first program, and we were in 3 Brazilians, and also we had 3 researchers from Ghana too. And it was an amazing experience because we got a lot of training in the lab and research-wise, and we could discuss a lot about how research is done here, the challenges we have in Brazil, the challenge in Ghana that they were facing, and also compared to how it's done in Yale at the university. And it was really an enriching environment. And we love it. I love to do research there. We were for 8 weeks. And I was, after I left, it became part of a PhD for another student from the lab I was. And he went to Yale the following year, and then he did his part of PhD there. And after that, because of Yale, I decided to pursue postdoc abroad, and it really helped me with recommendation letters to be able to get a postdoc outside of Brazil. So it was a really amazing experience to be part of the program.
So Luisa, have you stayed in touch with any of the people from either Dr. Rose's lab or some of the other students in the summer research program?
Yeah, I met Professor Jack Rose and some of his students some years after, because we have been to meetings about innate immunity and virology. So I kept contact with them after. And also when I applied for postdoc, I also wrote to get recommendation letters from them. And so we kept a little bit of contact. And also previous students, so all the Brazilian students that were there, I still have contact with them. And some of the Ghana students also, we were sending emails and talking how research has been going after we left the program. So it was really nice.
Yes, so I think Luisa really sort of highlights one of the original sort of visions of this program, which was to really bring these students from Brazil into a community of scientists from all over the world. And so I'm really pleased to hear that your relationships that you developed at Yale many years ago now have been sustained and have provided you with career development, support, and also friendship over the years. So that's wonderful. Fabio, let's hear from you about your time at Yale and how that experience influenced your future career decisions.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Michael. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so glad to have this invitation to be with wonderful professors, alumni from Yale University. So perspective as alumni of the program, I mean, it's to think about global health and infectious disease and working on project keep the global health against infectious disease. That's what I've done at Yale when I had worked with genomic characterization of hookworms, isolate from Ghana using listed PCR, DNA isolation, DNA extraction, phylogenetic analysis, and some complementary techniques. In fact, following this project, we present a poster of this project at the Congress of Tropical and Medicine, EGM, and later we published, as Michael already told, an article about genetic markers of benzimidazole resistance among human hookworms in the American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. So my training at Capello's lab was great with the researcher Lisa Harrison and other colleagues, and also it's good to say that I had a good connection with other students, Americans, and also Ghana students. I've learned a lot.
So Fabio, as you went on in your career, you're now, you find yourself now on the faculty as an assistant professor, having gotten your PhD, and you're teaching students and conducting research in virology. What lessons, if any, would you say, or what examples did you learn from your time at Yale that influenced the way that you engage either as a researcher or as a mentor now that you have that responsibility a few years later?
Yes, for sure, Michael. So it's important to learn and to it's important to know, and then we can have enough techniques, enough allowance to then teach for students. So I actually, so everything I know today, it's important to pass and to teach students.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Fabio. I appreciate that. So next up, we'll hear from Gabriel Montero de Silva. Gabriel, please, you were a part of the Summer Research Institute in 2017. Why don't you tell us about your experience here? I know that you've really had quite a successful time at Yale and beyond. Talk about your lab, talk about your mentor, and talk about how it changed the course of your own education.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike, for the very kind introduction. And hello, everyone. So as Mike said, I worked in the DeMayo lab for 8 weeks, and then for 4 more weeks, actually, I ended up staying 1 more month to wrap up things, and it was an amazing experience. The lab is interested in HPV biochemistry, which was what I was studying when I was in Brazil for my master's. So it was a perfect match. I had the opportunity to learn many very cool methods that I would never have the opportunity to do in Brazil because of lack of resources. And I learned so much. And it was not just learning, I was also able to conduct my own independent project and carry it to mostly completion. And at the end, I was even able to take my results and put it on a cell paper. And never in my wildest dreams did I think I was gonna get a cell paper so early in my career, especially as a second author. So that was amazing. It was really, it suffice to say, it changed my career entirely. And it rekindled my passion for research, because for a long time, I told people I didn't really enjoy wet lab research. But it turns out I really didn't enjoy autoclaving pipette tips. Yes. So I got a chance to see how science is conducted when resources are virtually unlimited. I mean, if there is such a thing. So that was really good. And it gave me a very good perspective of what I want research in Brazil to be like, and what kind of research I want to do. And I mean, I still keep in touch with Dan and to many of the students, with Luis, who was also in the program with me, who was my roommate. And I mean, it was also thanks to the program that I met my partner, Sarah. She was in an undergraduate biophysics program, which was a senior at the time, and we've been together for 4 years now. So, yeah.
Well, that's probably the greatest success story you could have had. Gabriel, tell us a little bit about how you're a PhD student now at Brown University. What role did your time at Yale play in that transition in helping to make you a successful candidate for a PhD?
Oh, absolutely. It played a pivotal role. I had 2 rec letters from Yale, one from Dan, one from Patrick Gallagher. And when after I got accepted at Brown, I talked to the program director just informally, and he was very impressed with the letters. And that's something that if you're not, if you don't have exposure to how admissions work and how universities in the US work, it may be very challenging to apply for a PhD program in the US. There's many caveats that you kind of have to know because the process is perhaps a little convoluted if you're not familiar with it. So not only the research experience, not only the rec letters, not only me being there and seeing how research is done and saying, I want to do this more, but also just all the people that I had the chance to talk to and learn from.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gabriel, and thank you to our 3 student panelists today. I think what's been highlighted in your reflections are some of the important, I think, outcomes and impacts of this program. You know, in particular that even though it's a short-ish program, it's 8 weeks, it's very intensive and it has the kind of impact that can help accelerate your career. It can help make the next step possible. One of the things that we've learned in working with international students from all over the world is that having an experience at Yale and having an opportunity to show your talents to faculty at an institution like Yale really does add credibility to your resume and presents something that catches the attention of universities all over the world. And so I think that the story that Gabriel tells is one that we've actually seen many times. And certainly we love it when our students can come here for a short period of time, but leave with something that will help launch their subsequent career. So Gabriel, Louisa, and Fabio, thank you for those reflections, and thank you for staying in touch with the program. I know I speak for my colleague, Dr. Elijah Paintsel and Lisa Harrison when I say how grateful we are for your staying in touch. So I'd like to go back now to Benedito and Sylvia to ask them to talk a little bit about some of their ongoing collaborative relationships or relationships that they've had, either mentoring students from Yale or collaborating with faculty from Yale. Because another part of the program's goal, and certainly part of Yale's interest in terms of engagement in Brazil, is to have a sort of faculty level collaborative opportunities. And so Benedito, maybe you could talk a bit about some of the projects you've had with, you know, say Jack Rose and with Nate Grupa, and even the relatively new collaboration that you and I have discussed looking at Zika virus antibodies.
Sure. Actually, we've been collaborating with some other people, but it really didn't get like to any paper. But you know, we had a lot of discussion, exchanging of lab materials. But with Luisa's work and some other students in the lab, we worked with Jack Rose in producing vaccine for dengue 2, vectored by the vesicular stomatitis virus. That's one of the things that Jack Rose did in his lab. And now we are in like kind of collaborating with Nate Grupa, also with dengue virus. We're Also, Luis is also involved in this study. We are selecting several viruses that we have isolated in the past from a little bit. It's not from the time that I came here because I think it was like the beginning of the 2000, and we are sequencing those viruses, and Nathan is trying to analyze the sequencing, trying to kind of uh, have like a molecular clock in terms of the circulation of this virus in Brazil, and especially in Ribeirão Preto, but it's also we are also collaborating with other people from other parts of Brazil, including the Northeast. Rafael is another student here in my lab, and he also went to Jack Rose's lab, and now he's in Recife, and we are also collaborating with Nathan Gruba in terms of uh, providing the samples for sequencing and trying to understand what's really happening with dengue in Brazil. And more recently, we talked about doing our work on Zika, especially in terms of doing neutralization tests for Zika viruses, because um, I don't know how many people here uh, are like in the arbovirology field, but there is a lot of cross reaction in terms of antibody cross reaction between Zika and dengue. So regular ELISA tests or immunofluorescence or any other tests, it's kind of impossible to say which antibody is directed to dengue or which one is directed to Zika. One way to approach this problem is doing like neutralization tests. Then you can really differentiate infections then caused by dengue and infections caused by Zika. So that's one thing that we are planning to do, and I think we're going to do in the next month or so.
Excellent.
We
Sylvia,
also did some of mosquito. I'm sorry,
no, go
we're
ahead.
just finishing. We just did some mosquito work also in terms of determining the genetics of the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes here and the relationship with the dengue outbreaks. Unfortunately, was like a subject of a master's student, but it didn't get published, but it also was a very interesting thing that we did here.
So it sounds like there are a number of opportunities sort of for sharing of reagents and sort of sharing of technologies between the two institutions. Really, with you, I think as an alumnus, sort of serving in that linking role. Sylvia, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your experience mentoring students from Yale. I know you've had a number of students over the years. Why don't you sort of pick one and sort of highlight what you learned from that experience and what you hope your student got out of it, and also how that opportunity or that experience in mentoring someone from Yale brought you closer to the university and allowed you to keep in contact.
Well, thank you. I had a few students and also from the Wilbur Downs Fellowship, but I had one particular student who he was in the middle of his MPH. He knew Bob Baltimore, who was my thesis mentor from the MPH. So we, so he's also very talkative. He came to us, he spent the summer, we did a very interesting research. We looked for colonization of group E strep in mothers from a private maternity and a public maternity. And at to that point, we had very little data on about the colonization rate. So Alex was able to, to put this project together. We worked together for the summer, wonderful summer. He went back to Yale, he finished his MPH, he published his data, and then he went on to pursue a career as a medical doctor. He went to medical school, he went to pediatrics, and we met a few years ago in one of our trips to San Francisco, where he is a successful pediatrician at a hospital. And he said that he was very inspired to have lived that experience because we were surrounded by pediatricians at that time. We were in a maternity. And I had very good friends who are friends to today. And he says that he was inspired by this trip to Brazil, a summer experience in Brazil, and changed his career. He's now a medical doctor. So I think Alex is an example of a kind of this relationship. And I was reflecting here, Michael, the other way around in one of my visits to Yale. I was invited by Professor Dr. Martinello to visit the hospital epidemiology and at Yale New Haven Hospital. And there I saw him coordinating 3 other infection controls from other hospitals. I look at that and said, wow, what a nice idea. And then I came back to my hospital. We had started to buy other hospitals. I implemented that, and today I have 45 hospitals. We are actually implementing now what we call the tele-infectious diseases. We are reaching out to those very distant hospitals who won't have infectious disease specialists all the time. So we have this platform now that we can also provide good advice, not only in treatment, but in prevention of infectious disease, which is really what I like to do. So thanks to you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sylvia and Benedito. So before we get to questions from our audience, we have a few that are coming in already. I just kind of thought I would summarize what I think really the critical keys to success and what we've learned, I think, through this program and through our engagement, certainly with Sylvia and Benedito over the years. And I think in many ways it highlights some of the Yale University's priorities when it comes to its global engagement. I think it's clear from the conversation that when programs sort of approach their relationship from a sort of an equal partner perspective, meaning that both sides, both institutions have something to bring to the table, something to give, I think that really is a critical foundational principle for programs to be successful. And certainly that is built on a level of trust. And I think the personal relationship certainly that I have with Sylvia and Benedito that goes back many years was a critical factor in being able to work together and to develop collaborative opportunities for our students in both directions, because we had that degree of trust. And I think the second really important point is that you really need to identify the assets that each partner can bring to the table, right? And so, Yale, for example, has a remarkable capacity to mentor students in the sciences. And the Summer Research Institute really leverages that. It takes advantage of that by integrating students from USP into Yale labs. The second is that these trainees, as Benedito pointed out, these trainees often serve as the bridge between faculty members who can then move forward or advance their collaborating research. And then third, I think these relationships in a program like ours really does provide access to shared knowledge and reagents and technologies so that each participant and participating institution can bring to the table what it has to offer and engage in that relationship in a very sort of equal and equitable way. And so I've really sort of enjoyed this opportunity to hear from our collaborators and from our students. I would like now to transition to answering some of the questions, and I may call on some of our panelists here to respond. So first up, for our trainees, we have a question. What were some of the most challenging and also happy moments at Yale and in New Haven? So which of our trainees would like to answer that question?
Okay.
Louisa, please. Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just remember that like one highlight I remember about the training that was a really nice thing for me and inspired me a lot was we're learning how to cultivate VSV and do plaque assays. And I remember that Professor Jack Rose, he just sat on the microscope to show me how to pick a colony. So at that time I was amazed. I'm like, oh, he's just like taking his time to sit on the microscope and teach me how with the pipette. He just got a pipette and the plate and say, oh, you just go like this and you pick the column. And I remember I was amazed and I was like, oh, that's really like a kind of mentor I would like to be one day. And it really inspired me a lot. But I really like that he would always check to see how research is going every week. And it was really nice experience to see that and learn like from him how to do that. So it was something I really enjoyed.
So Gabriel, we've already heard about the happiest moment for you at Yale, but I wonder if you could reflect and maybe point out one of the challenging things about your time here.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the most challenging aspect was just adapting to a new environment, being thrust in a high intensity research environment and just having to, because of course, many things are extremely similar, but down to the level of even interpersonal interactions are slightly different in Brazil and in the US and at Yale and at USP. So that was the biggest challenge, but I'm glad to say that I think I picked up on that really quickly, so it wasn't really a problem.
Excellent. Fabio, the next question I think would be appropriate for you, having made the transition from student to professor. At what stage in your academic career do you think would be best for students to come and participate in a program like this? Where along the path from sort of, master's student through PhD student?
So thanks for the
Fabio,
time.
can you start over? Yeah, you froze for a second there.
So I have problem with connection.
Sure, start over, that's fine, you can begin.
So I don't think there is a specific time period to go to Yale. Every time it's important to be at Yale and to feel and to learn. But if I would have another chance to think about my career and the time I would go to Yale, it might be at a PhD time during a PhD, doctor student. Since I've gone to when I was in my master program, so I think that it's good to have more basis to get more information in Yale. That's it.
Excellent. So our next question again is for our students. Can you expand more about what you've done at Yale that is sort of beyond your lab work and research? Meaning, talk a little bit about how you interacted with the Yale community, with New Haven, and things that you might have done while you were here. So, Louisa, why don't you begin?
I love that we also have seminars. So in the end of the program, it is nice like to get together and get to know what everyone has been working in the lab. So it's a really great interaction to present what we have been doing for these 8 weeks for all people attending. So it is really nice to have this interaction. And also we were really well received by Michael Capello, and we had several opportunities to engage and interact not only like in the lab we were working, but also interact with people doing research in the other labs. So it was something I really appreciated, that we could interact not only with our lab, but like all the other labs, and get to know a little bit how people from different countries are working, because every lab has people from different ethnicities. So it was a really nice way to interact with a lot of people from even other countries. And it was really enriching, I would say, like to see and experience the research being done. So, and also outside the lab, we had a lot of ways to interact and talk. So it was a really nice way.
Gabriel, would you like to say something about some of the sort of social activities and things that happened in the Yale community and in New Haven during the summer months?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my best memory is the barbecue at your place, actually. That was very fun. But we also, me, Luis, and Gabriela, we did many things. We went, thankfully at the time, of course, there was no COVID. So we went hiking, we went to outlet shopping. That's something that Brazilians love. You might know that. We did. I really liked New Haven as well, especially during that summer. All the food experiences, all the sightseeing. Like Yale is such a pretty school, so the social aspect was also a blast. Also, I mean, it was summer. In the winter, it's a different story, but still.
Fabio, what do you remember most about your time outside the lab?
Well, I would say just getting home very tired from lab and walking around, trying out different ethnic food, different pizza place, ranking the pizza places in New Haven. That was all wonderful.
So Fabio, we'll give you the last word. Do you have, what recollection do you have of your time at Yale? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Fabio.
Okay, so I really appreciate the seminars, the talk with Capello in the lab, and also social barbecue. And also, so the main important maybe it's Yale's museums, library, and the Cushion Center.
Excellent. Well, I think that that about does it for our time today. I want to again thank all of our panelists for participating, for sharing their reflections on their time at Yale and on their relationships with the university since they were here on campus. I also want to encourage everyone to look at opportunities like the print, excuse me, like the print program that Vice President Lewis discussed earlier. You can find information on that either through the Yale University site or through, I believe, through CAPES. And I really look forward to meeting our next generation of students who participate in this program, and also look forward to continuing relationships and collaborations with people like Dr. Sylvia and Dr. Benedito. This has really been outstanding, and I want to thank you again for your attention and for your participation.